Alrighty, I think we've got everyone here. So I'm going to jump in and get started. Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to our fifth session of our virtual O Week. It's really flying by. Today's session is going to be all about our community challenges. So let's get straight into it. Here's a little overview of what I'll be covering today. I'm going to give a quick background on Challenges Abroad and who we are for anyone new that's joining us. Then provide a little bit of context of some of the issues that are commonly faced in the communities where we work and really how they guide our community challenges. We're going to look at what you do on one of these programs, why your skills are really, really important and really beneficial for us. And then I'll quickly break the program into a day-to-day breakdown. So looking at what you would do on a typical day in the program. And then we're going to chat to one of our amazing past volunteers who's been on a community challenge with us. So without further ado, let's introduce you to Challenges Abroad. So we are a social enterprise that was established as a means of supporting our own charity, who are called the FUTURESENSE Foundation. And the foundation work in our partner communities in 6 countries around the world and establish grassroots programs around 4 key areas, which are education, health, livelihoods, and the environment, with the ultimate aim of taking action on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So one of the main ways that we are able to support the foundation is through our fabulous volunteers who work with them on specific projects that have been designed to benefit the community in a specific way. And as a social enterprise, that also means that we support the foundation financially by donating any profits that we have each year to help fund their long-term community-based programs. But on top of the aim of generating impact, a really big focus of what we do is also supporting the development of young Australians and students in Australia by providing opportunities that really allow you to step outside of your comfort zone, develop some new skills, and re-examine some perspectives that you might have as well. So our programs are really set up and designed to ensure that as much as you can make an impact, you can also be impacted yourself. Obviously, throughout COVID, like everyone, we have faced some additional challenges as an organisation in being able to support the foundation and also being able to engage with students around Australia as well. But our key focuses throughout this time and throughout the last few months have really been on how we can continue to meet the immediate needs in the communities that we work with and how we can continue to support those communities without having volunteers directly on the ground. A few ways that we've been able to do this is by having our in-country teams volunteering themselves in the community. They've been helping out at things like COVID checkpoints, providing needed medical supplies, and putting together these really exciting education and homework boxes for some of our partner schools to help support students who are distance learning. And we've also been exploring how we can continue to keep engaging young people and helping to develop and build some of your skills, which we did through an isolation webinar series, which we were running a couple of months ago, and also with an upcoming project, which we're really excited about, and I will touch base on that again at the end of the session. So to know why we run the programs that we do, it is really important to understand and look at the challenges that are faced in many developing countries and particularly challenges that we see in the areas where we work that help to guide our programs. In relation to community development, you can see 4 of the main challenges up on the screen in front of you. The first one is a lack of quality education, which is really the biggest barrier that we see in development, and one that all of our programs are designed around. So there are really enormous disparities, not only between education in a country like Australia versus a country like Cambodia, for example, but also disparities within developing nations themselves between often city areas and rural areas. There is often a huge lack of resources, a lack of qualified teachers, and they also heavily utilize more traditional learning methods like rote methods, which aren't typically engaging. And in some of the countries where we work, there is also kind of a little bit of corruption, which means that some students may need to pay to get extra tutoring or extra teaching, which helps them to get ahead in their education, but leaves many others behind. Then we have social and economic issues, which is obviously a really broad category. And there are many, many social and economic issues that pose a barrier to community development, but some of these include things like limited job opportunities, low income, and often things like discrimination against gender or abilities or religion. And developing countries are often more susceptible to things like economic changes, economic downturns, as we're all seeing right now, and also more susceptible to environmental impacts. So things like natural disasters often hit developing nations much worse. Then we have a lack of essential services, which includes education, but also things like health and access to health services can have a really large impact on community development. For example, maybe if someone can't afford to access healthcare, their illness or them being sick can impact on their livelihood. It may cause for their children to drop out of school or education to help care for them, or to make income that they're missing out on. Or some people, for example, need to travel quite far to even visit or access a healthcare centre or a hospital. And this can often mean a day or two of lost income as well. So health and community development issues are really, really entwined. And then, of course, the last one, which again is a massive issue, is people in communities who are living below the poverty line. So the majority of the people that we support and the communities where we work with, a large majority of those people are either living under, on, or very close to the poverty line. And this really limits and impacts these people in every aspect of their life. So that is a really, really huge one. As I mentioned at the start, all of our programs link to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and this is a really large part of the work of our charity, the Foundation, which I mentioned at the beginning. These goals really help to guide our work, ensure sustainability, provide direction, and support long-term community-based goals. So our community challenges link to the following key sustainable development goals that you can see up there on the screen. But often have a domino effect on additional goals as well. Alrighty, so let's jump into what you do actually do on one of our community challenges. So all of our community challenges either run for 2 to 3 weeks. So you will spend definitely 2 weeks of the program working on the following community-based projects. So you'll be doing that Monday to Friday, and then you'll have a free weekend in the middle to do some exploring and traveling, and yeah, get involved in some really fun activities. So one of the biggest things that you'll do on one of our community challenges is running workshops. So these workshops are designed to support the improvement of quality education at a grassroots level in the communities where we work. So they're a really, really large aspect for us. On these workshops, you'll work with our partners, who are often a variety of local schools that we've been partnering with for a number of years. And you'll be running a whole bunch of different workshops that can be on a variety of different topics, kind of depending on the needs of the community at the time. But A really big focus on most, if not all of our programs, I would say, is conversational English. This is one that's really, really important and often something that can't be taught by the local teachers because their English skills obviously aren't the same as our volunteers who are coming from Australia. And English skills and improving conversational English can be really, really powerful in helping students not only further their education and get into secondary education, and hopefully for some get into tertiary education, but it also really helps with their employment prospects. Many of the areas where we work kind of linked in to tourism, so if people have conversational English skills, that can really enhance their chances at getting employment maybe in the tourism sector. But you can also be running workshops around things like life skills. Creative arts is a really great one, looking at things like drama, of course sports, getting everyone up and moving and active. And STEM, again, is a really, really great one that we love to include in a lot of our programs. And the idea of these workshops is not to come in and be a professional teacher. That's definitely not what we expect, and that's not what you guys are there for. But the idea is to be really fun and creative and to make these workshops really engaging and to help children feel excited about attending school and excited to learn. So we really encourage you to create really fun workshops because they're often different to the traditional learning of kind of looking up at the whiteboard and writing down notes. So it does really improve engagement levels if you can include different activities and get everyone up and moving around and really excited. And in a lot of cases, the local teachers in the classroom will be there as well, so they can be really great at supporting you in the classroom and to helping to translate as well, so we can make sure everyone's understanding what you guys are saying. So they are there to provide some really great support, which is also fantastic, and they often learn a lot as well and have a lot of fun getting engaged in some of the activities. So workshops are a really big one. And then we have infrastructure support. So the majority of our programs, of our community programs, do include this element as well. So these are projects that just involve some upkeep of the school communities and the grounds that we work in. So it may include things like painting a classroom, brightening up an area, maybe helping to create a new playground area or a garden, and often involve creating or painting a educational mural. So it might be linking to something that you've been teaching in your workshops and can really just like help instill that knowledge and provide a great reminder for the children once you return home. And then the last one that has kind of been more of a recent inclusion and really depends on where you're volunteering and what they're needing at that time. But we have had some groups engage in some really basic environmental projects more recently as well. So this can include things like tree planting, community cleanup, so getting the whole community or a group of people involved in cleaning up plastic and rubbish around the area that you're in. And also the creation of eco bricks, which has been a new one and is basically where you stuff a whole bunch of soft plastic into something like a water bottle, and then once they're like jam-packed, they can actually be used for constructing walls and new buildings. So it's a really cost-effective but an environmentally effective way to create new buildings at a really cheap price. So that's a really exciting one. And we often have people ask about, like, why me? Why a university student? Why are my skills more important or more valuable than maybe someone in a country like Cambodia? Like, why can't they deliver this information? And as I kind of mentioned at the start, often rural areas, which is where we mostly work, are lacking in qualified teachers, are lacking in professionals that can really come in with that knowledge. Conversational English, as I mentioned, is a really big thing. So people don't obviously have the conversational English skills that our volunteers from Australia do. But importantly, our volunteers are really enthusiastic. You guys are energetic, passionate, and also will often have time to spare in the semester holidays between university. So you can really help provide much needed education and knowledge in the community that, as I mentioned, unfortunately just can't be entirely covered by the people on the ground. Of course, our long-term goals and aims of the foundation would be to have the communities where we work be completely self-sustainable, that they don't need any volunteers, but we're still working in making that progress. You also have the privilege of your education, and it's a huge privilege to be able to share that with others. And if you think about it, in Australia, when we're at school, we have a variety of people that come into our schools maybe a few times a term, and they run an hour or two of workshops or sessions teaching you about something that your normal teachers in school can't or don't teach you about. So our volunteers are essentially acting as that group when teachers in the countries where we work are unable to deliver kind of that portion or that different area of education. You also have access to some really fantastic resources that often can't traditionally be accessed in the countries where we work. And you yourself, of course, are a fantastic resource that is really incredibly valuable for our in-country teams, and they can't do their work without you. And the last point on here, it's also really powerful, and it's really important about what you're able to do once you return home, and this can really be just as important as your experience overseas as well. So we want the experience to broaden your ideas, build your skills, and further develop your passion. So we know that you are so well placed once you return to Australia and in our lives in Australia to help make an impact on a local scale and help to share your ideas and your passion to others. So that is a really powerful thing. As I mentioned, I would be covering at the start, here is kind of a typical day-to-day breakdown of a day on our community challenge. So depending on where you are, you'll normally get up around 7 or 7:30 a.m, have some breakfast at your accommodation and get ready to head out for the day, or at least the morning. And then around 8:30, you'll head to where your project is based. So you'll head there with your team and normally focus on running a morning session, which will last around 2 to 3 hours. And that will include the activities that I mentioned earlier. And then depending on where you're volunteering, you will either have lunch at your project site and have a little bit of time to relax, or if you're close, you might be able to head back to the accommodation and have lunch there before getting into your afternoon session, which will run for about another 2 to 3 hours. Then after that, you'll head back to your accommodation, have a bit of a daily debrief with your team and with our team on the ground. You'll have some time for planning if you need to plan your activities for the next day or for the week. And then basically you'll have dinner scheduled, and then after that you have free time to kind of just relax if you want. We sometimes have things like movie nights or activities planned, or you can just do your own thing. So head into town, do a bit of shopping, maybe get some food. Our country teams always provide a whole bunch of suggested activities that you can do in your free time. And then, as I mentioned at the start, you have your middle weekend free again to do some exploring and traveling before you get into your second week of volunteering. So what you'll get out of it, these are just a few things. I think we could probably fit about 100 things in my opinion on this slide, but these are kind of some of the key aspects that we're able to pull out all of our programs. So as I mentioned at the start, our programs are really designed to push you outside of your comfort zone, really challenge you. It's not meant to be an easy few weeks. So by stepping outside of your comfort zone, you are really provided the opportunity to learn more about yourself, maybe learn what you're good at or things that you might want to improve at. And yeah, really gives you time to kind of re-examine perspectives or thoughts that you might have about certain things as well. Of course, you will get to meet new people. So you'll be volunteering with a group of people who will kind of be your support system and maybe your new family for a couple of weeks. Of course, we always have our in-country team there to support you as well. But we have a whole bunch of our volunteers who come home and stay in touch with the people that they were overseas with. And some of them are really, really great friends right now, which is all always really lovely to see. Of course, you'll have a really fun but also a really meaningful travel experience. So our programs are designed to kind of take you past the traditional tourist experience and do provide the opportunity for you to really immerse yourself in the community that you're working with and to learn a lot. And of course, you will develop a whole bunch of new skills. So no matter what you're studying or what program you're on, you'll gain some really amazing life experience and develop some universal skills that we know are really important in our futures, and often skills that employers are looking for after uni as well. So things like communication, problem solving, critical thinking, teamwork are all things that you will definitely develop on one of our programs. And then this slide just provides an overview of everywhere that you can do our community challenge. So we run our community challenges in all of the 6 countries where we work. In Peru and India, we actually have 2 community challenges. So those are our India Community Challenge and Peru Community Challenge are the typical 2-week programs. And then both the Machu Picchu Challenge and the India Himalaya Challenge offer a week at the end of your 2 weeks of volunteering. So in Peru, that involves trekking up to Machu Picchu, of course, which is pretty amazing. And then in India, that also involves a trek, which is into the Himalayan mountain range. So also pretty incredible. But no matter what program of ours you do, you also have the option to add a optional extension week to the end of your travel, which is where you get to go on basically a week-long tour of exploring more of the country that you have just volunteered in. Okay, and now I believe we have Joy with us, who is one of our past volunteers who has very kindly donated some of her time to share a little bit about her experience with us. Joy, if you're able to unmute your microphone, I will jump straight into some of the questions we have for you. But maybe you could start by just introducing yourself and what program you volunteered on.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Joy and I'm currently a 4th year student at Monash University studying a double degree in law and global studies. And it's actually been a while since I've been with Challenges Abroad, but I went back in December of 2017 on Challenges Abroad's India Himalaya Challenge. So I also opted for the optional extension as well. And yeah, I'm excited to talk to you guys about it.
Great, amazing, thank you. So the first question we have for you is, what was your biggest challenge on the program?
Oh, I think for this program in particular, it was twofold. Because it involved the trek. That was physically quite a challenge. It was a great challenge though. I think some of our group had a few confronting emotional experiences where they were really questioning whether they could make it. But in the end, we all made it up and we also all made it down very safely.
That's great.
So we're all back to tell the tale. But it was just a great experience with amazing views. And we actually did it at the start of our program. And so that was actually a really good way for the team to bond, because a lot of us did not know each other before going on the trip. So it was a good bonding experience to have before actually volunteering together at the school. The second key challenge I'd say is just the volunteering itself, because it can be super tiring. Like Kirsty brought up in an average day of volunteer, you're getting up pretty early and, you know, you're going to school, teaching them, having a short break, teaching them again, and then essentially debriefing and preparing for the next day. And having to do that for 2 weeks straight can be quite tiring, because when you're teaching kids, you really have to try to match their energy. And they are all so excited to have you. Like, they just love having visitors, love learning new things. But, you know, in order to overcome that challenge, it's just good to have the team, because you're all going through the same thing, often feeling the same feelings. And because you're all in it together, it makes it so much easier.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of people find, like, they're in those 2 weeks and it can be really exhausting, like you said, especially with, you know, the energy of the kids that you might be working with. But then you get to the end of the 2 weeks and you're like, oh my gosh, it's over already. So you kind of want to just like give it your all when you have the opportunity to.
Definitely. It's so fulfilling to do it. And in the end, I think everyone in the group was crying because we were leaving them. So you do get very, very attached to the kids.
Perfect. So this one might be a little bit more fun. What was a highlight or one of your biggest highlights?
I'd have to say that paragliding down from the Himalayas was pretty amazing. It's not for everyone, because I think some people are a bit wary of the safety in India, but it was a great option for us. So we were finishing our hike, and essentially our guide was like, you have 2 options. You can walk down the mountain or you can paraglide down. And so we all chose the more adventurous option and paraglided down, and it was insane. Like, still to this day, like it brings back so many good memories. So that was kind of an adventurous highlight. And I'd say the more meaningful highlight of the trip was just to see the individual growth of each student, because we were at a school that ranged from kinder to year 12. Like, we had to organize very, very different lesson plans for each class, and just seeing the individual personal growth was amazing. Like, at the beginning of our program, whenever we would ask a student how they are, we'd simply ask, like, how are you? They would just say, fine, ma'am. And you would get no other response. It would just be like, they were all like robots. They'd respond, fine, ma'am, fine, ma'am. And so by the end of it, we had conducted a how are you type lesson with each class. And, you know, we taught them to answer with fantastic and tired and hungry. And so by the end of it, when we were leaving them, you know, not one of them said fine. They were all saying all these other words that they had learned, and that was because of the impact that we had. So it was pretty special.
Yeah, that's really special. I think a lot of people find that, like, I would say that fine ma'am response is something that was probably taught in their classes as how you respond. So that's really where those conversational English skills come in, and you can further develop that. And that's so great that within your 2 weeks you were able to really see them learn that new skill and be using it as well. Okay, and the last one we have for you is, what impact, whether that's big or small, has the program had on you?
Well, I'd say it's had a pretty big impact. I'd probably say in 3 key ways. Firstly, I've gotten a bunch of lifelong friends. You know, I went on this trip at the end of 2017, and I'm still super close with a lot of my group, and we still often catch up, and pre-COVID would go camping. So it's really amazing. And I think there's something special about Challenges Abroad, because it really attracts people who are like-minded and who want to use their skills and talents to give back to people who are disadvantaged. And what a better way to do it than to combine it with some travel on the side as well.
Yeah.
I guess, like, another thing was just the travel side as well. It was a really different way to travel. I had done some volunteering experiences in the past, but this was a lot more immersive because you were quite isolated. in the area that we were in northern India. And so you really lived among the locals. You were not a tourist. We definitely stood out like sore thumbs, but especially the more white people in my group. But it was just such, like, they were just so welcoming, so accepting, and it really has opened my eyes into like a new way to travel. And I guess the last thing is that, I think I've brought up this experience in every job interview I've ever had. And I've had a lot of job interviews. So it's a really useful experience to draw on, because, there's leadership, there's teamwork, there's communication skills, there's overcoming challenges. And so it's even though it doesn't technically relate to my area of study, like I'm not studying education, just being able to engage students, teach them tangible skills, teach them conversational English, like that has so many transferable skills in other fields of study. So yeah, I could go on and on. Like you said, Kirsty, before, I could go on and on.
Yeah, oh, that is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I wish we had the time. I could just listen to you go on and on as well, but we better move on. I'm quickly going to just pause to see if we have any questions. Feel free to open your chat box to anyone who's here and pop a question in there while I go on, and I'll cover the next few slides and then check back in on those at the end. But we're almost finished up. Of course, we are not avoiding that we're living in a really different time. And of course, that has massively affected any international travel. But we have introduced a number of measures that we hope will make you guys who are interested in traveling in potentially 21, that will make you feel comfortable and secure and safe in booking a program for 2021 now, but knowing that we have these flexible policies and options in place if things do change or things don't go ahead as planned. So the first one is no change of date fees. So that means if you, for example, booked a program in June or July next year and then aren't able to travel on those dates, or you don't want to travel on those dates, you are able to postpone to different dates, whether that's at the end of the next year or even in 2020, 2022, and you can do that without any cost. We also have our full program flexibility, which is similar and means if you book yourself in for a certain program next year, for example, and then you decide you don't actually want to do that program, maybe you want to change from a community challenge to a health promotion challenge, or you want to change from Peru community to maybe a Machu Picchu challenge, you can also do that without any fees. And then lastly, we have, or second last actually, we have our flexible payment plans, which means once you pay the deposit and secure your place on the program, it's up to you how you'd like to pay off the rest of the cost. So you can do it in a way that suits you, whether that's paying in fortnightly, monthly, or quarterly installments. And then lastly, we have, of course, enhanced our health and safety measures. Health and safety was always one of our biggest, if not our biggest priority pre-COVID, but post-COVID, we are, of course, reviewing health and safety in all of the countries where we work and enhancing our measures and practices. So that includes things like fewer people sharing rooms and bathrooms, and more frequent and thorough cleaning of our accommodation facilities as well. And as I mentioned at the start, we do have something new coming soon. So if you don't want to wait until next year, or you don't want to wait until we are allowed to safely travel again, we have our virtual internships, which is a new project for us, and they are launching soon. So keep an eye out on our social media channels and our website. And yeah, we will have them coming your way soon. So I've just seen a question come up from Emily, and she says it's for Joy. So she says, would you consider doing another trip again with Challenges Abroad? I'm also just wondering if we all meet up prior to leaving for the trip, and whether everyone aims to get on the same flights, etc. So maybe you can answer that first part, Joy, and I can tackle the second half.
Sure. Hi, Emily. Thanks for your question. I have seriously considered doing a trip with Challenges Abroad again, particularly the Machu Picchu challenge, because of that involves a hike as well as volunteering. So something I would like. I would say that, just timing hasn't worked for me at the moment. And I do remember when I was first looking at Challenges Abroad, the cost was quite significant, and that was probably my biggest worry. But after going on the trip to India, it was all worth it, because Challenges Abroad just organizes everything, and so you can just put your heart and soul into the actual volunteering and helping the kids themselves, and you don't have to really waste your time trying to organize all the logistics. So I would definitely consider doing another trip.
Great, thanks, Joy. And yes, Emily, if you all meet up prior to leaving for the trip. So on all of our programs, we always try to organise at least a couple of meetups with your team before you head overseas. Sometimes we have team members where we have people actually scattered around the country, and sometimes we have teams where everyone's from Brisbane or everyone's from Melbourne, for example. So how those meetings happen can differ, whether they're in person or kind of virtually like we're doing now, but we definitely see a massive benefit in everyone kind of at least getting to know the names and faces of everyone on their team before they head overseas. And whether everyone aims to get on the same flights, that's kind of down to your team. Some people may decide to arrive into Cambodia, for example, a couple of days earlier. They might be doing some traveling on their own before the program starts. So that's something that you can kind of chat about in your team when you do have those meetups. I know a lot of the time people are really keen to book on the same flights. It obviously can make you feel a little more comfortable to know a few people that they're on the same flight with you. But we always have our in-country team who are there to pick you up from the airport as well. So you always have a friendly face waiting for you. And we always set up a Facebook group for your team too. So that can be a great way to communicate, find out maybe what people are packing or what flights they're booked, or they might be able to provide you tips on like what travel insurance they've found to be the best and things like that as well. I hope that helps to answer your question. Perfect. And yeah, hopefully it won't be too long until you're able to travel with us. I think you've had to postpone once, so fingers crossed it will only be the one time. And that is pretty much everything from me today. So again, thanks so much for everyone to joining in. There are a few ways you can get in touch with us if you want to know more. I'm popping a link in the chat right here. If you want to book in a call with us to chat directly, if you have any questions or you want to know what program we think would be best for you and things like that. You can also get in touch by sending us an email. Of course, check out our website if you just kind of do a little bit of exploration and have a look at some of our programs. And our social media channels can be a great way to kind of see what we've been up to, see updates from the countries where we're working in. And our YouTube channel has a whole bunch of videos that we've filmed of volunteers in the country when they're volunteering, and they're kind of chatting to you about the experience that they're having. So that can be a great way to kind of hear from our past volunteers. But that is everything. A huge thank you to Joy for joining us. It was fantastic to hear from you, and I loved everything that you said. So thanks so much for your time.
No worries.
But otherwise, I hope everyone has a great afternoon, and hopefully we'll see you in a couple more sessions this week.